Hello world, my name is Ihor and today I'd like to talk about the Digitakt Arrangement Strategy. So the Digitakt is an amazing sampler. I think it's a perfect tool to throw your ideas on and get instant, immediate results that sound good and also good for performance. But when it comes to arrangement stage, a lot of people are struggling, including me myself, because arrangement is tough, it's hard, it's difficult. But over time, I developed some kind of a little arrangement strategy. And today I'd like to share the 8 steps that I take to arrange, perform, and record a techno track on the Digitakt. Let's do it. Step number 1, think about the leading sounds and think about the controls that you have over them. Think about how the sound is going to evolve over the entire track and what kind of hands-on things are you going to perform during this track. For example, I have this bass line. It's one of the main sounds on track 5. And I can control the filter cutoff. Not that much resonance because I don't want to go too ACD. And then you can also use the filter envelope amount as well. And then I have a second sound which sounds like this. And this one I'm planning to simply bring during the breakdown with increasing the volume or level from 0 to 100. Quite easy. Nice. So the second step is to think about your track structure and what kind of arrangement are you planning to make, and then map it into the patterns here on the Digitakt. For example, for a techno track, it can be fairly easy. You need an intro, then you need a build-up, then the breakdown, then drop, and outro. And then if you map it to the patterns, I mapped it already. So in the first pattern, I have the intro, second pattern, and third pattern are build-ups. Then the fourth one is a breakdown, the fifth one is a drop, and the sixth one, similar to fifth one, it's kind of a full energized pattern, but this one I'm gonna use to break things down into the outro and finish the track. And when you decided on the track structure, you can go into step 3 and arrange your track using pattern mutes. You can access the pattern mutes by holding Funk and tapping Bang twice. So when it goes into this purple color. And pattern mutes, unlike the global mutes, the green mutes, they are preserved on the pattern level. That means that you can save the mutes per different pattern. So let me show you real quick. For example, on our intro here, I have only kick drum and the bass line enabled. That sounds like this. Then we go into the second pattern. I unmute the tom and open hi-hat. That sounds like this. Then we go into the third pattern, unmute more things, and stuff like that. And after you arrange the track and you have all these patterns in place, you can go into the next step, which is step 4, change the sounds on different patterns to create variety. You can use different techniques, like you can high pass the kick drum or change the decay envelope to some sound like open hat, for example, or maybe change the synth sound or even add some triggers or some additional percussion into place. For example, in my arrangement, in the first pattern, what I made, if I go into the first track, into the second filter, I added high pass filter to the kick drum so that it doesn't bring the full energy yet when the track is playing its intro. And then if you go into the second pattern, I don't have this high pass filter anymore. And you can do all kinds of different things here as well. And we go into our next step, which is step number 5. Use one-shots track. So for me, it's track number 2. It's track with all kinds of different percussive sounds that have conditions and stuff like that. So it sounds like this. So different kinds of percussions happening, and it's a lot. But the intention of this track is not to use all of them at the same time, but rather use these things occasionally. So usually I would have this track muted, and then while arranging the track, I can unmute this track and leave, for example, just one trig and set condition to 50, for example. And then this trig is going to happen time to time. It's going to add some kind of little randomness into a track or some unexpected shots, which will keep your track quite interesting. And also this track can be used to put some kind of razors or splash sounds or impacts. For example, I have this one. It has the condition first, which is gonna play only the first time the pattern plays, and I have this one enabled only on the 5th pattern where I have my drop, and on the other patterns I just removed it. So, and when the drop happens, this sound happens as well. And we go into our next step, which is step number 6, prepare for your performance. And here I have quite some number of tips that I would like to share. So first of all, performance is a part of arrangement. So you arrange the track and then you have to perform it. You have to add your own feeling, your own energy into the track. While you're playing these main leading sounds that I mentioned in the first step, you add your soul or your love into your track, and it's gonna be amazing. And a couple of tips to have. So for example, first one, if I go into track number 8, I always have 4 pages enabled on the last track, 64 steps to change the pattern, which is basically 4 pages or 4 bars. And the reason I have the 4 pages enabled on the 8th track, they give me visual representation on where I am within the track or within the count, within the metronome. So it's kind of visual metronome, because sometimes it's going to be not really good to drop a kick drum at the wrong moment. But this one can give me a visual representation and get back to a proper counting. And the next one is use fill mode. Here, if I go into our clap track number 4, so I have these claps over here, right? And then I have additional claps here and there. So, and this one, I put the condition into fill. This basically means that whenever I hold this button, this trigger is gonna play. And this gives you an amazing opportunity to add some kind of, again, variety to your track with pressing this button. I have it only with claps, but again, you can get creative here as well. And the next tip is use your mutes, not in arrangement, but while playing. So let me give you an example. So for example, we have this little sequence going, right? I can, for example, unmute this second track, which has these different percussive triggers for just a moment. Or I can unmute the open or closed head. Or I can occasionally unmute the claps. Or another trick which I usually like to do is to drop the kick together with the bass tom and then play a little bit with hi-hats. So I would usually have the closed hat and open hat close together, as it's written right here. And then it gives this kind of interesting ability to do this. Just with one click, you mute the open hat and you unmute the closed hat, and then back and forth. And the next tip is Digitakt's mixer. So this quite straightforward, 8 tracks here, 8 tracks here, 8 knobs here. So you can control volume of your tracks with this mixer. And I love this feature, and unfortunately, it's not present on the Octatrack or the analog rhythm. I would love them to be present. It's quite useful because you can control the volume of different tracks at the same time simultaneously. So for example, you can go and introduce this sound little by little. Then we drop kick drum and we start fading the bass line out. And then we go back. Yeah, something like that. Nice. And the next one is track all. This is like all-time favorite, all-time famous thing on the Digitakt. It basically, you can take anything on the Digitakt, hold track, and move the knob, corresponding knob, and it's gonna apply this change to all the tracks. For example, we can send everything into delay and reverb. More. So holding track, amp page, and then we go like this. And then we go back to the normal. And with this one, you have to be a little careful, because sometimes if you send things too much into delay, they can resonate and create some really, really bad mess. I usually go into audio routing and I exclude the kick drum and low tom to be sent into effects. So this one, send to effects, you click these two and you exclude those. So what happens when you send everything into delay and to reverb? It basically sends all the tracks. But if you send kick drum and the bass tom into delay, that might create some unnecessary mess. So to prevent this to happen, you exclude these two tracks. You don't necessarily need to do it. Maybe sending kick into delay, it's your thing, but it's definitely not mine. So that's why I have them excluded. And another tip, which is connected to the previous one, you can hit reload pattern. So whenever you change a lot of things on Digitakt, you can still go back into this saved pattern always. This is what I did in the previous example. Like we sent everything into delay, then funk no, and we go back into the pattern. Sometimes during the performance, I would save the pattern as it is right now, mess around with the load parameters, track all and all this stuff, and then just funk no, and I'm back in place. And also reload pattern brings back the mutes as well. So if your pattern was saved like this, and you decided to mute kick drum and unmute the clap, now you can go back to the saved pattern with this function again. Also, there is a way to rename your patterns. If you click this button and go rename, you can name the first pattern as intro, the second one as build up, and so on and so on. It's gonna appear here on the page. I never use it, but indeed this feature can help you to be organized. And also don't forget to save your project and all patterns so that you do not mess things up and you can always come back to it. And we go into our step number 7, practice, experiment, and reflect. So practice is essential, like especially on hands-on things like that. Unlike Ableton with all the automations and stuff, here you will have to perform, you will have to move things around, you will have to use your hands, so practice. Also try to experiment, try to go with track all into all kinds of different things, like go and increase bit reduction on all the tracks, or I know, make the decay time shorter on all the tracks. Try to experiment and go crazy and see what works, and remember that you can always reload your pattern, you know that. And then reflect. If something doesn't work, go back to any step and fix it. And step number 8 is hit that record button and have fun. And I'll try to play this track. hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you're considering to get a Digitakt, there is a link in the description down below. If you would like to watch a video where I explain how to record tracks after you perform them into your DAW, you can check this video. And if you're interested in watching the video where I create techno from scratch just on the Digitakt, you can watch this one. And until the next time, guys, have fun.